talk about something that I went, wait, did he just talk about Mary's afterbirth? And you do. You're
Yeah.
right about Mary's afterbirth.
Mm.
Care to elaborate on why you included that and why?
Yeah. It's amazing because it actually means a lot to me, which is, I know, hilarious. But I've been for me, one of the most important theological points or ideas that has been transformative in my actual life and ministry is the full humanity of Jesus. And most Christians kind of know, like, yeah, we believe Jesus fully human, fully God. But when you actually ask, well, if you had to pick, which one's more important? Everyone's like, well, he's God. Some are clever enough to go, oh, you shouldn't pick. But when you actually start to push into it, our discomfort with the full humanity of Jesus is it's significant. And it just actually sounds so irreverent, right? To talk about Jesus having gas or going to the restroom or going, gets more uncomfortable, going through puberty, right? The Bible is clear he never sins, but that clarity is in light of his full humanity, he never sins. And so the reason I talk about Mary's afterbirth is there's this early church father, Tertullian, who talks about it. And it really grabbed my attention as I was reading him, because he was dealing, in the early centuries after the church, he was dealing with this temptation to over spiritualize the faith. And this, some of your listeners will know about the Gnostics, but they were into this kind of spiritual knowledge, but the material world is not good. And that has, throughout the last 2,000 years, that temptation has always been there for the church to think God doesn't actually like the material world. He cares about floating souls. It's just and we don't even realize how much we end up being non-Christian sounding in this way. No, and so part of my big task is to say the God of creation is the same as the God of recreation. And Mary's afterbirth is part of it, so that the spirit hovering over the tohu lavohu, over the chaotic waters in Genesis 1, and then bringing order out of them and affirming the goodness of creation, that spirit is the same spirit who hovers over Mary, and who you end up with Mary, who is a virgin, pregnant with none other than the Son of God, becoming incarnate. And when she gives birth to a real baby. Right. And now some listeners like, I still don't understand why you're talking about afterbirth. It's never in the Bible, which I think is a great question. Why is it never in the Bible if you think it's important? And that's where I'm very interested in. The reason it's not in the Bible is because it happened. In other words, we're like, how do you know?
It's like it rained. It doesn't mention it rains.
It's right. Just normal.
It's
the things
normal
you
life.
have are what is abnormal, what you need to know, because they wouldn't be expected. And so if it didn't happen, if actually Jesus popped out of Mary and hovered and floated and there was no blood and there was no, then I'm pretty sure we would have data on that, right? It's actually the exact same reason you don't read about Jesus going to the bathroom. You don't read about him giving belly laughter. You don't read about that stuff because it's just normal. It's just part of his life. So that was a way of getting into it.
Well, you made me think about, I as you talk about it, the way we don't do with humanity, but for some reason, Kim Jong-il came in, and there was all this literature about when he was a little boy, like he changed his own diaper, and I mean, it was this idea that he was God. He golfed the first time,
and so it's kind of the earthiness was uncomfortable.
Exactly, because they couldn't imagine that for him.
Wow, I never heard that.
And they talk about him like golfing for the first time, and he gets a hole in one, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's where it's just not real. And this is where
example. Yes.
Yeah, you include
but
that.
That's what we do with Jesus.
I want to be cited.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what we do with Jesus.
It's exactly what we do with Jesus.
So we're like, what a theological question is. There's real debate. We always say Jesus is a carpenter. It was probably more like a stone mason historically, to be honest. But anyways, whatever kind of work he was doing with his hands, did he ever need to did he ever measure wrong? Did he ever, and the question is, if it's sinful, no, but that's where the question is. So often, so many of these things are not about sin. They're about being a creature and learning and developing and practicing. And so by all means, right? Jesus could have tripped. I'm sure he tripped. Jesus ate something that upset his stomach. Jesus, so yes, that's a fact. I had never heard that the Kim Jong-il example. So there you go.
Yeah, you look that up to make sure. You got to cite me. You got to cite me. But it's one of them. I know that it's one of them because there's all this apocryphal literature about it.
You know the name Steve Brown. Yeah, he does Key Life Ministries. He's got this great voice, on the radio, and he was one of my preaching profs. But he used to say, first time you hear a story, you say, well, Travis did this.
Right.
Second time you use the illustration, you say, someone once said. And he said, the third time, it's yours. So there you go. I'm just telling you where this is going.